Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Mike Kollin at crackedfemalecode.com. Alright, so it's going to be a fairly short but a very important and informative video for you guys, so you don't make this mistake that can waste you a lot of time, whether you're trying to save your marriage, pick up on women, meet the girl of your dreams, dating tips, etc. So I'll get into it right now. Okay, so one of the things that I learned in psychology class, and especially in NLP and also hypnosis, I learned about it in psychology, but I didn't really understand it. It was more of just a word that you hear a lot, and I didn't quite understand it until I got really deep into NLP. That's where I really understood it. Alright, so what this word is projection, okay? So here's what happens. Now, there's okay. One of the things I've noticed, whether it was especially like the main one, the guy, the Men from Mars guy, he actually lives 15 minutes from me. And he's world famous, and he was like the go-to guy for marriage and relationship coaching, etc. But one thing I noticed on his website about 15 years ago was he, on the home page right in the center, it said, I forget what the first wording was, but it's almost like warning or notification. They said something, I think he said over 50% of people, attendees who attend our seminars, end up in divorce in less than 2 years. And I was like, wow, okay, so why are people paying you all this money to save their marriage if you're saying, hey, most of the people in less than 2 years end up getting divorced? So this also explains the difference between my course and all the other so-called experts, okay? And this is what you have to look out for. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of money, a lot of time, and you're going to end up in divorce or not getting the girl or breaking up, etc. This also applies to the pickup artist courses. Here is what everyone's doing and why they're literally missing the other half. Alright, so it's really simple. I'm going to give you a real life example with a client of mine that had 2 doctorate degrees. Very wealthy, very successful man. So he showed up one day, and he was really cocky, to be quite honest with you. He wasn't that old. I think he was about 44, 45 actually. And he'd just gone through, I think it was his second divorce. And one of the things that came up, so he had basically said this. He said, look, I don't know what you could possibly teach me that I don't already know. Now, I was about 34, 35 at the time, and I just kind of like, I've got another egotistical man. Because that, guys, to be honest with you, guys come in with an ego. For some reason, when it comes to women, a lot of guys have a really hard time willingness to learn from someone else. So you got to put the ego aside if you want to learn this stuff. So one of the things I've done is I did I meditated for 12 years, every single day, twice a day, in the morning and at night. And I used to go to Buddhist temple for many, many years, okay? 2 different temples I went to, Richmond and Stockton, okay? The Laotian temples. So here's what happened. With that and with the other internal techniques that I was being taught, I began to get really good at going inside. Now here's what I mean. When you do internal meditation, you begin to open up to your right brain, which is the female brain, and you begin to see things and perceive things and see the world from the right brain. And all of a sudden, everything is radically different. Now here's why. When you read something from the right brain, you're using a different processor. It processes words in a different way. It literally gives different meaning to the same words. So when you take those same words and bring them over to the left brain, the left logical processor gives those same words a completely radical different meaning. And this is why I keep telling you, men and women are literally speaking 2 different sub-languages, but we don't know it. And we perceive body language radically differently. The right brain processes it and gives it body language completely different meaning than the left brain does. So we are literally hearing, feeling, and seeing 2 completely different experiences at the same time while we're standing next to each other, while we're talking to each other. We don't understand each other. Now watch this. Alright, so right here, that's me on the left in the yellow shirt with Buddha Chandi and Buddha Mai, and I forget the third monk's name. It's in not Stockton, but that one's in the Richmond temple I went to. So if you go to a Barbara DeAngelis seminar, which by the way this client did, he went to all of them. He went to Tony Robbins, Dr. John Gray, Barbara DeAngelis, and he went to some local like relationship coaches. So here's what happened. So Dr. Barbara D'Angelis, she's a right brain person. She's a woman, and her mating system is connected to her right brain. Now, why is that important? Because that's the way that she views and experiences the world. She goes, well, this is the way it is. Not just her, but women do. And this is why men and women will frickin' battle to the death, because they don't know that the other person is viewing and experiencing the world from a completely radically different direction. For example, so as I've said in all the other videos, the male mating system is not connected to the right brain's communication center. It's connected to his eyes. So what do we do as men? We take women out, we buy them flowers. This is what we believe. The more we spend on the flowers, the candies, and the dinner, the more likely we're going to get laid. And that's just a fact, guys. That's what we actually believe. And guess what? This violently pisses women the fuck off. Because women are like, what? I'm a goddamn prostitute. The more money you spend on me, the more likely I'm going to give you sex. It really pisses women off. But they don't have any choice. They got to put up with it, because that's what guys think. The more money I make, the prettier girl I'm going to get. The more money I spend, the more she's going to like me. Nope, not true. In fact, this frustrates the crap out of women. So our mating system is visual for purposes, as I've said in the last couple of videos. It's because we want to make sure, or our mating system / Mother Nature or God, whatever you believe in, just wants to make sure if you get the woman pregnant, that the baby is going to be inside a healthy body, because the baby is going to be inside her body for 9 months. Okay? So it has a healthy environment. That's why we're visual. We're looking for health cues. Okay? It's not because we're jerks or assholes, because when we look at a woman's body, oh God, do they get fucking pissed off. But here's the deal. Women don't know that there's a difference in our mating system. Whenever I express that hers connects to the right brain's communication system and his connects to the eyes, and the reason is for Mother Nature's to make sure the baby's healthy, then women go, oh, I thought men were just being jerks all these years. I'm like, no. So here's what ends up happening. Her mating system's connected to her right brain's communication center, not the left logical communication center, because men go, oh, it's about communication. I'm a great communicator. I had a client that had his master's degree in communication. He was a multi-millionaire. He goes, well, if it's all about communication, Mike, I've got my master's degree. I'm like, no, not left brain, not logical, not proper English. And clearly that wasn't working, because you're going through your second divorce, and the guy lost his second $5 million home. I'm not kidding. This was back in the late 90s. All right, now watch this. So here is a very, very, very typical experience between a man and a woman who've been in a long-term relationship or a marriage. And it even happens to guys who dating, like, I don't understand why she's so pissed off. Like, gee, well, here's why. So when a woman says A out of her right brain, remember that is a different processor. It literally processes through the 5 senses: see, hear, feel, smell, and taste. So that gives a completely radically different meaning to the words than your brain does. So here's what she does. She says A out of her right brain, which those words mean A, and then what you do as a male unconsciously is you bring them over to your left brain and you process them through your logical processor, which gives every word that she spoke a completely radically 180-degree different meaning. So she's saying A out of her right brain, and you are sincerely and genuinely hearing B, which is the opposite of what she said, and you truly believe she said this and this meant that. So what happens is she's saying A, but your left brain changes the meaning to the words that she spoke out of her right brain to the complete opposite of what they meant, and you're saying, you said this and this means that. She's like, no, I said this and this means that. And you're like, no, it doesn't. And you guys have this huge fucking argument because neither one of you realizes or knows or was ever taught you're using 2 different processors that give 2 completely different meanings to the same words. And thus, we are hearing the complete opposite of what they're saying. And because of this is what I call all is fair in love and war, is because we don't know that we don't realize that we're using 2 different processors that they act like filters that change the meaning to everything that's being said. So what we do is we dig our heels and we argue and we fight and we look at the opposite sex like, oh, they're just fucking crazy. Are you ready? So this client of mine, he was kind of a cocky guy. He was a guy with 2 doctorate degrees. And he was kind of being a dick the whole time. And I said, look, man, I told you money back guarantee. If you don't want to continue, we can stop right now. He's like, no, come on, keep going. So here's what happened. Watch this. So he came in after, I think it was the 4th day, with a stack of hardbound books, home study courses from Tony Robbins, Dr. John Gray, Dr. Barbara DeAngelis, and he literally had an armful of this stuff. And he walks in my door and he slams them down on my hard wooden table. Now I thought he was fucking pissed. So I turned around and looked and said, hey man, I told you it's money back guarantee. I go, what's the problem? I go, so you wasted a few days here. It's not a big deal. And he goes, no, I'm not mad. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you're right. You're right about everything. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? He goes, you know how you say that how men and women use different brains to process information? I'm like, yeah. He goes, Michael, you got to understand, I was a straight A student all the way through high school and college. I go, okay. He goes, when I was at those seminars trying to save my marriage, and now he did it with both of his wives. So he'd been to these seminars for freaking over a decade. He had been through the ringer, right? And he'd read, and this is what he said. He goes, Michael, I've read all the books. He goes, I've done all the home study courses from the best of the best. And he goes, I brought this to prove it to you. He goes, look, and he opens up a book. He goes, look, here's a signed autographed copy from this author, from this teacher or coach or whatever. I'm like, okay. I go, okay, I believe you the first time you said it. And he goes, but you don't understand. I go, well, what's that? He goes, I took copious notes like I did studying for my doctorate degree. I'm like, okay. He goes, Michael, I really paid attention. I'm like, okay, I believe you. He goes, I really thought walking out of all those seminars, he goes, and he also goes, I even hired, and I'm not going to say the person, it's one of the top 3. He goes, I even hired him one-on-one for, I think he said 12 sessions or 20 sessions. He goes, and I ended up in a divorce anyways. And then he said, you know how you keep saying that women process information through the right brain and men unconsciously bring the same information through the left logical processor? I'm grinning. By the way, I'm grinning at this point because the light bulb is going on for this guy. It freaking is clicking. I go, uh-huh. He goes, when I was studying, taking copious notes and studying copiously, I forget how he said that. He goes, you're right. They were saying A, but I was hearing B, truly believing that's what they were saying. Now, he was referring to Dr. Barbara DeAngelis' seminar, by the way. And then he goes on, he goes, and me and my wife would just argue tooth and nail. I'm like, no. He goes, I would say, no, she said this and this means that. And then he goes, I would go and get my notes to prove it to my wife. And I would bring out the manual and I'd bring out the paperwork from the seminars and the books. And I would have it circled in the book. Look, here's where she says it right here. Here's where she says it in the seminar. And my wife would be like, that's not what she means. So he goes, oh, and he goes, I would literally tell her that she was crazy. And I go, let me guess. And she would look at you and tell you that you were an idiot. And he goes, yeah, she said that to me all the time. In fact, she said that's one of the reasons why she divorced me, because she couldn't stand dealing with someone who was such an idiot and didn't understand. And she would always call me stubborn. I'm like, well, actually, you were both stubborn. Because you guys, no one came along and said, hey, by the way, when this seminar speaker is saying A, she's hearing A, but you are hearing B, or vice versa, depending on if the seminar speaker was a man or a woman. So here's the deal. We are hearing and seeing 2 completely different experiences, and we're having physical feelings and experiencing things because we're processing them in 2 different parts of our brain. So we're not on the same page. But that's what my course, Crack the Female Code, does. What I'm going to do to your brain is going to be mind-blowing. It will blow your... I've yet to have a client that just doesn't walk out going, holy... It's like your brain kind of fries and like steam's kind of rising up from your head. I'm serious. I'm not... Like, steam comes out... Okay, it doesn't actually come out of your head, but you will. You'll just be like, holy shit, my whole life I really believe that's what this meant. And you're going to have all these aha moments, not just one, but you're going to have dozens and dozens throughout that week-long training. And you're going to be like, oh my God, I've completely misunderstood women. No wonder why women are so fucking pissed off. So here's the other thing. When you have a female speaker talking, she's only going to be able to share from her side of the fence, from the right brain, and from the way her mating system is wired, which is not the way yours is wired. But she doesn't know that. Here's the funny thing. You actually learn this stuff if you go far enough in psychology and study the brain. Like, you see it, but nobody for some fucking reason has never put the pieces together. It's just fucking mind-blowing. So here's a guy with 2 doctorate degrees, and he looks at me and says, how come they don't teach this? And he meant all the greats from Tony Robbins. In fact, I think he even said his name. I think he goes, why doesn't Tony teach this? I've actually had quite a few men tell me this, because a lot of men that went through divorce, before they got divorced, that's one of the main people they go to is the Tony Robbins seminars. And God bless Tony. I love Tony to death. He teaches some really cool things. But they all say the same thing. They're like, well, why doesn't he teach this? Or any of them, even Dr. Barbara DeAngelis. And my answer is, they don't know that this exists. They have no clue of what this is. Or, here's the hard part, how to teach this to the male brain. And that is the hardest thing that I have to do when you come in here. Here's why. If you learn what I'm teaching logically, you're going to be processing it through the logical left brain, and thus you're going to be hearing the opposite of what I'm actually saying. Same thing that this doctor went through. I'm not going to say his name, by the way. He was listening to these seminar speakers, truly believing they were saying B when they were actually saying A. And so when you come in here, the one thing I'm going to be doing, it's called tracking. It's something I learned in NLP. I have to make sure your brain is hearing it in the right way, in the right part of your brain, like literally the right side of your brain. Now, why is that? Because if you hear it from the left brain, you're literally hearing the opposite of what I'm saying, and it's not going to work. So if you're hearing it from the right side of the brain, which there's a conditioning thing I'm going to be doing during the course. I'm going to have you do visualizations and exercises and all these things, and I'm going to slowly help you to open up, okay? So when you hear it from the right brain, number one, you're going to be on the same page. You're going to be like, oh shit, that makes a lot of sense. Whereas with the other brain, you're going to be confused going, this doesn't make any fucking sense. What the fuck? Number two, you're going to be able to use it from the right brain. So if you learn it from the left brain, you're going to spit it back out from the left brain, and that's just going to ruin everything. So if you learn it from the right brain, you'll understand it correctly, number one. Number two, you'll begin to go to your right brain and communicate it and express it from the right brain way, and she'll completely fall in love with you. Now here's the funny thing. When that doctor first came in, one of the things he said to me, I said, well, what's going on, man? Talk to me. He goes, well, me and my wife, blah, 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 and I've been to all the seminars, and I was like, okay. And he goes, the oddest thing in the world, he goes, my daughter used to be my best buddy. I'm like, okay. He goes, Michael, we got along so well, we went to the movies together, baseball games. I'm like, okay. He goes, and now she's in high school, she looks at me like I'm speaking a foreign language or something. And I laughed. He goes, what's so funny? I go, you literally are speaking a foreign language. So because once a young lady goes through puberty, she begins to open up to her right brain fully and completely because her hormones shift. She becomes more feminine. She becomes more emotional, which is the right brain, the creative, emotional, spiritual brain. So she's literally speaking the right brain language, where you're in your left male logical brain speaking the logical linear language. And she literally will get frustrated, like, oh, Dad, you don't make it. And that's what he said. He goes, yeah. She would say, you don't make any sense. So lo and behold, he looked at me and he goes, oh my God, that's why we don't understand it. I go, yeah, that's why you guys are having problems, because she's become a woman. So here's the deal, guys. This is completely opposite of the pickup artist courses. Those are all left brain logical, step 1, step 2, and they give you all these patterns and lines to memorize. Remember, the left brain is the memorization brain. That's not what this course is about. Okay, the understanding part of it is the difficult part, but don't worry, you just got to sit there and relax and take the course, and you will understand it. So once you put the pieces together, it becomes really easy. There's a few things you have to learn how to do in the right brain way, but once you get those things down, boom. Single guys, picking up on women will be so easy. They literally will come to you. They will open conversations. They will continue the conversation. They will add to the conversation. So all the pressure is taken off of you. And literally, that's one of the coolest things about my course. All of a sudden, there's no pressure. There's literally no pressure. It's not like the pickup artist courses where if you see a woman across the room that you like, you've got 3 seconds, you got to approach her now. It's like, dude, we don't do that. We don't do any of that bullshit at all. So seducing women, picking up on women, And here's the thing, if you're a married guy, your wife needs to be seduced in the right brain way. This is the reason why women divorce men and get really pissed off, because if they don't get it in this way, they're not getting emotional fulfillment. And that's the number one thing a woman looks for in a relationship. And right now you're going, what's that? Well, buy my book, Crack the Female Code, and find out. So here's the deal. If you go to a female coach, teacher, seminar speaker, she's going to be speaking from the right brain language, which you don't understand, by the way, so you're not going to understand her. You're going to think you will, but you won't. And she's going to be saying right brain things, which you're not going to understand. Now here's the kicker. If you go to a female dating coach, she's going to teach you how to pick up on guys, because that's what she's learned how to do. And then she goes, yeah, this is how you pick up on someone, not realizing, like, no, that's the way you pick up on a fucking guy. And I don't think you guys want to learn how to pick up on guys. Hey, this is Mike Kollin at crackthefemalecode.com. Go ahead and buy my book, Crack the Female Code, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Good luck.